Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Recession Resistant Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, and today I've got Mike Swenson on the podcast. Mike is the host of REL Freedom Podcast. He's on a mission to help listeners build real estate leverage freedom of their time and finances through opportunities in the real estate field. He also leads the REL Freedom Investor Agent Tribe. It's a membership community and mastermind group designed to help real estate agents build and grow their own investment portfolios. Excited to have you on the show today. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. It's good to see you again. I know it's been a minute. For those in the audience that are just getting acquainted with you, give us a little bit about your background and what you're doing today.
Yeah. So yeah, right out of college. Well, I should say I went to college for entrepreneurship, and I was raised in a family that it was kind of taught, get a good job, contribute to your IRA, and eventually you'll have enough to retire. And so, I was excited to learn about entrepreneurship, and yet coming out of college, I realized I'm not quite ready from a risk-taking standpoint. I had kind of described myself as risk averse, which is kind of funny now because I feel like I've taken a lot of big risks, but I felt like I was risk averse. So I ended up working for a nonprofit for 10 years, doing finance and operations. And so that's really where I kind of got my start, worked for a large nonprofit and did a lot of operation stuff. And in the meantime, I became an accidental investor because we bought our first townhouse when the market crashed. So I was so excited that we bought it right after we got married for $2,000 less than they had bought it for 2 years prior when it was a brand new construction. And I'm thinking, great, I got a good deal. And it appraised for above that. And so I was like, awesome, we've got some instant equity. And then I watched as the market tanked. And all of my neighbors were short selling and foreclosing on the property. And so we decided to rent it out. And I can talk more about that down the road. But ultimately decided to rent that out. We bought a house that we flipped. In the meantime of working at that nonprofit, we flipped another couple properties. And then I got into real estate full time. So I got into the operations side, worked for a large residential team for about 6-7 years. We became the 31st largest residential real estate team in the United States and did all the back end recruiting, hiring, training, systems, spreadsheets. I love a good spreadsheet. Did that. And then launched my own team in 2020. And since then, we focused on working with investors. So now we exclusively work with investors, most of them out-of-state investors. I'm located in Minnesota. And so we pretty much cover the entire state of Minnesota, helping our investors find short-term rental, mid-term rental, long-term rentals, duplexes, apartment buildings, you name it. And so that's where we're at kind of for our agent job. I kind of say my day job as an agent, and then my night job is, looking to do larger deals with investors. So we have a 25 unit property that we own and looking to do kind of more syndication and larger properties. And then in addition to that, I've got the Real Freedom podcast and then also the agent tribe and mastermind group where I'm looking to help agents kind of grow their skill set and be able to take those risks to get started as investors.
So walk us through that transition. You said in 2020, you had this great background, and then you decided that you wanted to create your own team. Walk us through what was the motivation and what steps did you take to get the ball rolling in that direction?
Yeah. So really, I had mentioned being more risk averse growing up, and having built a team, when we first started on, in my operations role, we had about 5 agents and we were doing about 150 transactions. And over the course of the 6-7 years, we grew that to about 50 or 60 agents. And I think we did 619 transactions back in 2019. And so I sat back thinking, here I am collecting a salary, which was fantastic. But I was like, I'm helping other people build their business, and so I'm ready to take that leap and to build my own business. And so that was kind of the tipping point for me. In addition to having, rental properties on the side, I still had that safe, stable W-2 income in addition to the rentals that I had kind of as passive income and wealth building on the side. but I finally was ready to make that leap and start my own business. And so I figured, why not start growing my own business? I helped grow this great business by finding, recruiting, hiring, training agents and admin. And so I wanted to do it on my own. And then quickly it flipped to working with investors, because that's kind of where I'm passionate.
I want to jump into the hiring and building a team here, because I think there's so much packed into that. But before we do, so many people struggle with the transition. It's always, oh, one day, or all, if I can just get make this much money or this much savings, then I'll quit my job, then I'll do it. And it's always one day. What mental hurdles did you have to overcome to make that transition? And then, ultimately, was there like a few check mark boxes that you had to knock off? How did you do it? How did you make that transition? What went into it?
Yeah. I would say 3 years later, I'm still checking off mental hurdles, it would be nice, to have that consistent income, but at the same time, you're building something for the future. And, I think for me, kind of that tipping point, like I mentioned, was I'm thinking, here I am helping other people build their business. Mm-hmm. And I want to have something for myself that I can build and grow. And down the road, I certainly am not expecting my kids to be a part of it. But if, one of my 3 kids is like, hey, Mike, real estate, or dad, I guess, hey, dad, real estate's really, really fun. Like maybe I want to do that. It's something I can build with them. And then too, because of the investing side, like we're building passive income. So I see in a lot of ways, I tell my team this, my day job really is building my future, because I'm in real estate. I'm working with investors. I'm analyzing investment properties, not only to help my investors grow their wealth, but I'm getting to play in the same playground and build my own financial future too. So I think from an alignment standpoint, I saw that alignment of my day job is now helping me build my financial future, where a lot of real estate investors, have great jobs, whether it's sales, medical, engineers, you name it, but they're working that day job and then they're putting their money into real estate. I can just align and build and grow my portfolio at the same time that I'm helping investors. And so I see that alignment there. The other thing that I'll mention is my first day launching my team was the first day of COVID shutdowns. And so it was kind of a 6-month buildup to this. So it's not like, hey, all of a sudden one day I'm doing this, but it's kind of the way things unwound. My first day was the first day of COVID. And so I was like, what do? I didn't have any clients at the time. I was just getting started. Yeah. And now there was COVID shutdowns. It's like, am I going to have to wear a hazmat suit, doing open houses? And, what was that going to look like? So it was an interesting time to get started with a new business.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it was really interesting. That was a complete game changer when COVID hit. It presented a lot of opportunities to some and a lot of shortcomings to others. One of the takeaways that I just had from that talk when it comes to how to transition, how to make this transition, a lot of these people are in these W-2 jobs. Getting a W-2 job in the field that's aligned with kind of where you're trying to go might be a great option. You're working as an agent, so you're getting that knowledge and expertise and getting paid to do it, analyzing these real estate investments. And so before, going off on your own or raising capital, you've already had so much experience underwriting and looking at these typical deals. The risk for you to quit and the unknowns were a lot less.
Yeah, there's a lot of transferable skills that I'm building and growing, because I know last year as a team, we had calculated, I think we looked at 3,500 investment deals. Now, most of them are ones where you look at it and you're like, nope, probably 80 to 90% of them, you just know on the surface, no, that's not going to be a good deal. But I now spent time analyzing 3,500 investment deals, helping other people. Well, that's also making me sharper myself. So I feel like, there's just a sense of alignment there, working in investment real estate. And even agents on the residential side don't realize the gold mine they're sitting on, even though they don't maybe work with investors all the time. They're still sitting on that same gold mine of opportunity where, hey, you find a good deal, you've got great partners, you've got lenders, you got people that can put this deal together. Why not build your own wealth instead of just treating your real estate sales job like no different than I'm selling copy machines, and it's like you begin every year at zero. you're constantly looking to your next paycheck, but you're sitting on this gold mine of opportunity in real estate where you can pick up some deals yourself and earn some passive income and gain some appreciation and all the tax benefits. There's just so much out there. And so I saw where my work can align with my future goals.
Yeah. And the agents don't realize that they're already working in that field and building that knowledge base, and others don't know. They just need to add this tool to their repertoire. Let's dive into building a team, because that's a huge part about growing an investment portfolio. It's a huge part about, getting that financial security, that freedom, really scaling. What steps have you taken in the past to grow your team?
Yep. I think it begins with the mindset of, so many people are led to believe if you want it done right, do it yourself. And so what I've seen is people try to do as much as they can themselves because they want it done a certain way. And I think building a team is about letting go. Like, you have to understand, I can grow this a lot faster when I have other people helping me and they're operating in their zone of genius, and I get to do what I do best as well. So it's like everybody's in their respective lane doing what they love the most and doing what they do best, but you have to be willing to give up that control. And it might mean there's some egg on face moments where there's a mistake with a client, or it might mean you hire somebody, it doesn't work out, and you've got to go hire somebody again, and maybe again, and maybe again, until you find that fit. But it's about understanding, if I want to build something big, I have to have other people along the ride with me. And so I think that's the key thing, is I see so many people try to, the instant that something happens bad, they immediately go inward and they think, I'm going to do this myself. I'm not going to put myself through this again. I'm just going to keep my dollars to myself. But you have to understand, through building others is how you're going to accomplish your goals.
Yeah, those are two huge mental hurdles you got to overcome. I ran acquisitions so many years in my company because that was my background. I was, medical device sales, and I was transferring that over. That was what I was good at, was deals. And that was the last position that I was able to give up to kind of free myself from the machine. And it took a lot for me to give that up. I was worried. I was really worried. But then we saw productivity go up, actually, when I did that, and actually realized, wow, there's actually somebody else better than me out there. So I think my ego might have even been a little bit attached to it. And then the second thing is, I've seen people, my brother specifically in his concrete business, I've seen him make the wrong hires, and he now has this limiting belief that there are no good people out there in your business, and he has to do everything. Like, I see it. He's just got this excuse every single time. It's like, no, I'm not going to hire. I'm not going to, I don't want to do that. There's no good people out there. The concrete industry is different than all the other ones. My problems are unique to me and not everybody else's businesses. And so I've seen it firsthand, that second mental block. After somebody, now these are mental blocks you're probably going to have to work through at the time, but knowing you've got these mental blocks and you're able to overcome them, what does the next steps look like in order to start growing your team? How does somebody start doing that taking action to do this? How would you do it?
Yeah. One of the things that attracted me, I didn't want to get into real estate full time because I didn't want to be kind of that 24/7 realtor, right? I loved real estate. I actually got 2/3 of my license requirements in college just by taking my courses. I had taken some courses in real estate in college, but I didn't want to be that 24/7 realtor. I had seen how, it's giving up your nights and your weekends, and, you have to be, I thought you had to be everything to everybody. And so I learned that, hey, there's an opportunity on the admin side where I don't have to do that. And so that was kind of what initially opened my mind to considering real estate, because I love spending time with my family. I don't travel. I didn't travel a lot for work. It was really important for me to stay home, stay with my wife and kids, and not be the salesperson that's gone all the time. I wanted to be with my family. And so I was not wanting to give that up. And I was attracted to a vision from the person that ended up hiring me, the real estate team that hired me. It was, look, we're looking to grow in multiple markets, in multiple states, and build something quickly. And we want to do this really big. And so it was a vision that me as a high achiever was attracted to. And so it acted like a magnet and drew me in, where I was like, oh, tell me more. Cause I just always thought residential real estate, local team, small.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, there's these really big teams out there. So it was a vision that attracted me. We're like, hey, we're going to build and grow something big that extends beyond this market. And it allowed me to then hire multiple admin people. And so I, was COO and ran the administrative side of that team. And so I was attracted to something larger than myself. And not that every real estate team has to have this world domination mentality of we're going to, help every buyer and seller in the entire world buy and sell a home. But at the same time, it's understanding, what do you want to do with your career, and being able to attract somebody to that vision. And so it might be to be the best, give the best service, best quality, highest standard of service to help somebody, buy or sell their home residentially. Or, if you're working with investors, to help them grow and find financial freedom through investing in real estate. But it's having that vision that people want to be a part of, because that vision acts like a magnet and it's going to attract people to you, versus just saying, looking for an admin, $20 an hour, must have past experience. Like, who wants to be a part of that? Well, if I wanted to make $20 an hour, I guess I would want to be a part of that. But other than that, what else do I know? And so, I also consult with real estate teams on the side as well, on the operations and admin side. And I talk to them because a lot of them want to build and grow their teams. And I say, why would I want to join your team? What's the value proposition? Me as an agent, why is my career or my goals going to be easier to hit because I'm on your team versus doing it by myself? And so here's what we can take off your plate. Here's what you can do more of what you love, spend more time. If you're a people person and you love to work with clients, being on a team helps allow you to work more with clients, and you don't have to deal with all the admin stuff, because a lot of salespeople hate doing the admin stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it's creating this vision of something that people want to be a part of. And I always tell people when I'm hiring them, I don't expect you to, when I hire you, to be with me for life, but I expect you to at least understand who we are and where we're going for the next season of life, and have that be a fit for you and your goals and where you want to go. Because it's kind of that 1 + 1 = 3 mentality. Like, you would love to be a part of my team, but what's in it for me? Oh, I can either get more time, more money, less hassle, whatever that might look like, but you've got to be able to solve a problem for somebody. And so it's kind of putting together that vision, that value proposition that's going to attract somebody to want to work with you.
Yeah, that vision piece is so important, because that's what the rock stars are attracted to, right? You're never going to scale, especially a small business, into a larger or a highly profitable business without A+ rock stars that can own all the problems. One of the biggest takeaways that I had, I think I read this book called The Dream Manager, and it was about this toilet cleaning company that was having a lot of turnover and how to solve that turnover problem. And one of the biggest takeaways I took from that book was I never realized it, but my job as a manager or an owner is to develop people in the organization where you can either, one, give them a next level opportunity in your organization to grow, or you develop them to the point where it's now time for them to get to the next level, and that's not at your company, and finding them that opportunity. And when I read that book and had that takeaway, I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. And being able to communicate that in the interview process, and communicate that during your weekly, your monthly sit downs with the team, like, hey, my job's to develop you, and to the point where we get there and we're no longer able to develop you, it's time for you to find that next level. When they know that, man, that's a game changer for it.
Yeah.
So
it's fun. I was going to say it's fun watching some of the hires that I've made in the past go on and do really great things. Somebody that you hire, I think it was not my second listings manager is now director of operations for a real estate team. And there's other people that are doing great things in real estate and even other industries, but it's fun to see them continue their career path and do something big.
Yeah.
And they were on our team for a short period of that time, but then they're wanting to advance their career. So it's fun to see how that advancement can happen for them, because it shows you're hiring somebody, a high achiever, somebody that wants to do something bigger than just fill a position for a fixed period of time for a certain dollar amount.
Yeah, real quick while we're still on this, because I want to get to kind of scaling portfolios here and get into the ins and outs of being an agent and how you do that, because that's your background and your expertise. You've got a lot of experience there. What advice would you give the audience as far as, interviewing people during this process, right? Like there's a million different ways to skin a cat, and this can get pretty complicated, but are there any big takeaways or big dominoes that you've learned along the way that you make sure to incorporate during the interview process?
Take your time.
Yeah.
You're finding the right person, you're finding the right fit. Kind of like finding a partner in life or a spouse. I kind of had that mentality of like you're running along and you're looking at somebody that's running along kind of the same pace as you, and it's like, hey, I could see myself spending the rest of my life with this person. It's kind of like that in hiring. Like you want to find somebody that's a fit for your organization, for your culture, for your beliefs, and that can take time. The hard thing is people hire out of need and they hire out of pain. Yeah. And so it's, hey, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I need somebody to fill that role. And so I'm going to hire the first person that's got a pulse. We also do that with hiring agents. If you got a real estate license and a pulse, you're hired for my team. And what you realize is I spend so much time, if I'm doing it well, training you and pouring into you, that if it doesn't work out, now that's time that you've wasted. So if you're going to take the time to train and really pour into somebody, you want it to stick. And so you've got to be willing to uncover, like if you see some red flags there, you got to take the time to address those red flags. And so I like to go slow through the process. I remember I was hiring somebody one time and they were doing another interview with another company, either like right before or right after I had my interview with them. Our hiring process is probably 3 to 4 to 5 meetings or conversations together. This person wrote me back the next morning, hey, I interviewed with this other company yesterday. They offered me the job and I took it. And it's like, well, how do you know you found the right fit? Yeah. If they're hiring you in a 1-hour interview, they make the decision that you're a fit for my organization to hire you. Like, what is that saying about your organization? So I like to be slow. What I also like to see is each time we talk, are they growing closer and more excited to the opportunity or not? And so that's the other benefit of doing it slowly is we have our first conversation. Usually I would do like a 15-minute screening call, find out a little bit more about them, talk to them a little bit more about the opportunity. I would share a little bit more kind of that vision and what we're looking to find in the future. Then when we do kind of the first sit down interview together, are they more excited about that opportunity? They kind of lean in a little bit. And it was fun to see a lot of those first calls are like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that that's what this job was for. Like, I thought I was just that $20 an hour for 40 hours a week type thing. And when I tell them we're building and growing a team and we're doing this in other states and we're going to recruit and hire more agents, they're really excited about that. And then if it was the person that's like, oh, I just took this other job because I did this other interview, well, then they really weren't a fit because they weren't looking for the same thing that I was looking for. And then we would sit down and we would have that second meeting. Well, then usually the next meeting we would, connect on some other topics, but I would have like some little homework assignment for them, whether it's like, hey, put together, an example of something that I think they would be doing in their job or something that was kind of relatable. I would give them a little bit of a homework assignment of, put together a couple slides and talk to me about this topic or something like that. Cause I want to see how much time, how much attention, how much care. If they slap something together, it shows me they don't care about the position, the future. They just want a job. I want somebody that wants to be a part of this company for a career, not just a job. And so I would do those little things to see, are they growing closer together or are we just kind of two separate lanes here? And the right fits are the ones that get more and more excited. They lean in the conversation a little bit more. And then after 4 or 5 times talking together, you can see, yes, this person, we're kind of on the same page here and they want to be a part of what we're building, not just I'm looking to plug a hole. So I think that's the advice I would give for people is you got to take your time with this person to find the right fit, because well, you may want to scratch the itch of I've got all this work I need somebody to help do. You want to be able to do it once. And once means maybe for 2 years, maybe for 3 years, maybe for 5 years, but not every 3 months. I've got this cycle of new admin that I'm trying to hire or new agents that I'm trying to hire or new whatever the job is. You want to be able to take your time.
Yeah. One thing that we do that you just mentioned is we do a mock work day where they come and work. We give them an assignment, tell them to follow up. We want to see how much time and effort goes into it for that exact reason that you just said. You know, how committed are they? Or are they just looking for a job? We did that.
Yeah. Even how they explain something, like you learn a lot. You know, I've had people that I've hired, and the first day they're on the job, you're like, oh, they're a little bit different than I thought they were. Like they, you know, not necessarily better or worse, but the way they approach their work is different. And so, yeah, you want to be able to see them do something that's relatable to see. Yeah, I could picture, you know, like if it's as admin, we were talking to agents, you know, telling them about whatever it was that we're talking about. If they can explain something well to me, could I see them explaining that same thing to agents or to the other admin on the team? Yeah, you don't get that in an interview back and forth, but when you ask them to do some homework and do a little bit of prep work, now you get a sense of how serious is this and how competent are they.
I want to pivot now to a different topic away from hiring processes over to, you know, scaling your portfolio. You know, a lot of the listeners we're all working towards financial freedom, right? You know, creating that passive income so we can build a legacy, impact others, and, you know, live life on our own terms. You know, what steps would you advise, you know, someone, especially it sounds like in this agent role, because that's your experience and expertise, to just take the first step on this path, or if they're already on it, maybe even pour some fuel on the fire?
Yeah, I think for most people, you got to figure out a way to get in the game. There's so much paralysis by analysis that's out there. I heard the stat, I think it was something like the average investor spends like 400 hours researching before they get their first property. And so many people are out there, and you see in these investor communities, or there's a lot of Facebook groups that I'm a part of where it's investors, they're all asking all this theory, right? Like, what would I do here? What would I do here? You just got to get a property to start, right? Treat your first couple of properties as a real estate education, right? I go to college for 4 or 5 years. I get an education, I'm paying money, and then all of a sudden I've got my diploma. Real estate investing, you're going to learn by doing, not by thinking. And so you've got to find a way to get in the game. And so there's got to be that tipping point where you're willing to finally take that risk for that first property. You can spread the risk a little bit, right? Like if I own a house right now, I could rent out a bedroom to somebody if I had that capability, or I could house hack, buy a duplex, live in one half, rent out the other half. So getting started investing doesn't have to be this big grand thing, but I've got to get started on it, because even just, you know, renting out a room in my house, I learn about finding tenants, marketing, communication, wear and tear on the property, things that I might have missed. And for us, our first experience was renting out our townhouse that we had owned. I learned how to find tenants. I learned how to screen tenants. I learned that when they said they were going to meet me to look at the property, that half of them wouldn't show up, and I would sit there and wait, you know, for them, and they would no show. So I learned that because I did it. You know, that property, the value of it was cut in half from when we first purchased it, but we held on long enough for the values to return. We refied from a 30-year mortgage to a 20-year mortgage, so we were paying down principal more quickly. The value eventually came back. And so, you know, I could have lost $80,000 to $100,000 on that property at the worst time, but I held on and ended up making money. We just sold it last year. But I learned so much by doing it. We also bought a flip property at the bottom of the market for $36,000. I learned a ton. The money that we made from that, so we held it, we rented it out for a while, and then eventually sold it. The money that we made off of that paid off my college loans. And so it's these short little things, these little seasons of doing different properties where I learned things, I got better. And I tell people, you can't get to your 10th rental until you start with your first. Your first turns into your second turns into your third. And there's even ways where you can do it passively, right? Like, you know, you can invest in a syndication and I don't even have to do anything. I just put up the money and put my trust in the operator that's running it. And so there's completely passive ways for you to get invested in real estate at the beginning as well. But you got to get started. and you're not going to figure out how to assess, you might figure that a deal is a great deal. And you might find out, because you've been in real estate for a while now, that first deal that you thought was awesome actually really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
But you don't know that until you see more deals. And so I think that's the key, is you got to figure out a way to get in the game first. How do I just get my feet wet? How do I get started? And then from there, I'll get better.
Yeah. You can't scale anything until you start.
Right.
Now, what asset classes are you focused on going forward for, yourself and your investors?
Yeah. So we've kind of moved in the same direction here to apartments. That tends to be where we're going. What we're learning from people is, and now this is just my investors, I'm not saying that there's not great opportunities out there, but single family homes, duplexes, there's just not as much economies of scale as there is with larger properties. People tend to stay away from the larger properties because they feel like, oh, it's a higher price point, I can't afford that. Well, that's the beauty of a syndication, is you can put your money together with other people to afford that, to have that economies of scale. But for us, we're looking at multifamily opportunities, 5 units plus, because I've got a property manager that's going to deal with all the headaches, right? It's not going to pull me from my job. I'm not trying to manage the property myself. I've got somebody that's going to handle it. And, this 25 unit property that we have, we're renovating 8 units right now. And so over the course of 2 months, we're kind of flipping these 8 units, updating them, getting them back up to market rents, and placing new tenants. Well, we still have 17 other tenants that are paying right now. If I had a duplex and I was fixing up 1 unit, 50% of my income is gone. And so I think that's where you see that economies of scale with more of the apartment buildings. And two, just, from a time standpoint, fixing up 8 units, we can negotiate a better price with the vendor, the flooring vendor, because now we're doing 8 units, not just 1 unit. And so it's kind of that economies of scale. And then two, we're in charge of the value of the asset. When you're at 5 units plus, you're not focused on comps. You're focused on kind of what's my revenue and what's my net income, and that drives the value of the property. So if I want the building to sell for a higher price, how do I raise rents? How do I decrease expenses? And so you're really in control of that asset more. And so that's why we're looking to more multifamily 5 units plus.
Yeah. How does investing in multifamily, since it seems that's the asset class you're really focused on, solve the major pain points of, agents or anybody that right now is trading their time for money financially?
Yeah. You've got, for somebody, so if I'm an agent right now and I'm looking up saying, hey, I'm selling houses, what if the market changes? You see interest rates going up, you see people talking about like commissions shrinking, you've got these iBuyers coming in, like the market, there's changes out there. And so by investing in real estate, you're helping to insulate your income from something that could be happening on the sales side. And so what I would say for those folks is yeah, you've got to get started to get that passive income going. Now, I'll tell you, from an apartment standpoint, you're not going to be rich on one apartment building right out of the gate, right? The cash flow is not a significant amount where it's like, I've got, let's just say a 5 unit building. It helps, but you're not gonna retire on one building right out of the gate. But what you can do is you see the value of the appreciation that's happening, the value of the building growing, and then you can do cash out refis, which you can then pour that money into other assets, build more and more cash flow. So it's like pushing a snowball down the hill. It's really hard to get it to the edge of the hill, but once it starts rolling down, it's going to roll down faster and faster and faster. So you got to figure out, how do I get that snowball pushed off the hill so that I can experience that benefit? And so, yeah, as kind of the average person, if I don't think I can do this myself, go find other people that you can work with. I heard a great analogy once at this real estate investing group that I was a part of, and they said, think about it like a triangle. So you've got 3 sides to the triangle. You've got time, money, and expertise. And what you want to do is take a self-assessment of what value do I have right now? And can I contribute to a real estate investment? You might have all three, but if you want to grow, you're probably looking for leverage in one of those areas. Well, as a real estate agent, I have expertise because I have the tools to be able to analyze deals, find good deals. I may have a little bit of time if I'm willing to invest that time in that investment. Like I'm not going to be a property manager. I don't have that kind of time, but I have enough time, like with my 25 unit building. I meet once a week with our property manager. We talk about what's changed, how are the renovations going. So I have the time to devote to that. Whereas, you know, an investor that's partnering with us doesn't have that time. So I'm offering him time. And then the money piece, if I want to scale, I can find partners that want to invest along with me. And that's going to be what allows me to scale more quickly. So the expertise and the time piece are the most value that I have. And for me to scale, it's finding other investors that maybe don't have the expertise because they're in another industry, or they don't have the time, but they do have the money. And so, you know, you as an agent, or you as somebody that's getting started investing, kind of look at what do you have, and then go fill out the rest of that triangle, figure out where can you meet somebody and really create a win-win scenario.
I think that's a great decision-making blueprint. Either you got the time to put into it, you got the expertise to put into it, or you got the money to put into it, and just decide which one you've got.
Yeah.
Mike, I've had a lot of fun talking with you today. For those listening that want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah. So if you're an agent, kind of figuring out how to get started, investing in real estate, I have a mastermind group of agents across the U.S. that are meeting, talking about, you know, kind of the basics, analyzing deals. We had a call today. We talked about property management, sharing best practices. And so I'm building a group of people that really want to help each other grow and bring that accountability. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can go to agentinvestormastermind.com. That's a little easier to remember than our Real Freedom website, because Real is REL Freedom. But Agent Investor Mastermind is one. And then from an investment standpoint, you know, we're looking for investor partners for these apartment deals. You know, if you're looking to be more passive, you can go to our website there, which is Elite Advantage Properties HQ for headquarters.com.
All right, rock and roll. Y'all check those websites out. Mike, it's good to catch up with you. Enjoyed having you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. I appreciate it.
See you, man.